Maintenant, je vais vous demander d'accueillir.
And now let's start the next plenary session. The moderator will be Malik Diawara, the editorial manager of Le Point Afrique. But first of all, let's welcome all the panelists. Valérie Verdier, the president and CEO of the Research Institute for Development. Please grab a seat. You can sit at the center. Please welcome Pascal ASSELIN, the co-founder and CFO of Morfo. Thierry d'Almeida, the director of training and research programs in Sèmè city in Benin. And if he's here with us, Papa Amadou, SARR, the Executive Director of Mobilisation, Partnerships and Communication for the AFD. And now I'll pass on the torch to Malik Diawara. Thank you very much, Samir. Good morning. Thank you, Samir Abdelkrim, to his team and his partners for inviting me to this 7th edition of Emerging Valley that will focus on the digital futures of Europe and Africa. No future is possible without innovation. Amid geopolitical and economic upheavals, Europe and Africa have to find a common ground for co-development, for co-innovation on each side of the Mediterranean. No sector should be left behind. Agriculture, health, culture, they all should be at the center of this initiative, where climate change will play a decisive role. Against this background, training and research are the best tool to let human capital to show its creative capacities and have an impact that will make all the difference in exchanging knowledge, in creating value from knowledge, while respecting SDGs and promoting a collaborative approach to innovation. We might face a huge challenge, but nothing is impossible here. In order to define this challenge, I turn to Valérie Verdier from the Research Institute for Development, Papa SARR, Executive Director, responsible for mobilization, partnerships and communication, Thierry d'Almeida, the Director of Training and Research Programs in Sèmè city in Benin, and finally, Pascal ASSELIN, co-founder and CFO of Morfo, a company that wants to that aims to reforestation with drones. First question. Ladies and gentlemen, about the challenges of co-innovation and co-development. What's your viewpoint through our topic's lens, which means youth? Valérie Verdier, over to you. First of all, good morning, everyone. The Research Institute for Development works on development and research that has a solid base in the countries we work with our partners, and we have a solid base that let us build the solutions and projects that will bring solutions to the issues that we need to solve in the most vulnerable countries we work in. We work with different programs. These programs help us co-build research partnerships together. We have international mixed laboratories, which are a long-term investment, as opposed to research that is short-term and doesn't generate solutions. We build laboratories together. We provide training courses for young people, and we focus on giving out support for PhD students, for university students too, but also to lower levels with youth clubs in high schools. And through these programs, we try to engage with young people and partners and launch a discussion that will give us more information about these issues at stake on the field, and that will give us more information on the solution we need to provide with research. What's your view about the co-innovation, co-development challenge? Thank you for this question. Thank you. As you said, research and development are at the heart of our activities. We have projects with states, local authorities, the private sector, and we want to provide good long-term answers to the issues we face. We set up partnerships with institutions such as the IRD. We have a campus here in Paris, which is part of the research department, and we work with key stakeholders in the research world. For example, we work on innovation and development with high amounts of support granted to young entrepreneurs that need money, that need also development research. We also provide the SIBC program. Some graduates of the program are here. Some of them will take the floor later on. And the SIBC is part of the training courses we provide. Those are young entrepreneurs that are coached online as well as in face-to-face meetings. There are dedicated coaches, dedicated support to help them implement the projects. We also provide a program I co-lead with BPI France. It is called Choose Africa. It follows the first part of the AFG project, a project that was carried out from 2018 to 2022. 4 billion euros were given out to support African entrepreneurs. They provided credit from 30,000 to 3 million euros, and today we try to increase the support we provide to African startups. So now comes the second part of the project with support to local entrepreneurs through local development banks and investment banks. agencies that support SMEs, and together we set up tools that provide guarantees, that stake acquisition, and we help starters to scale up and last on the market. And finally, there's our subsidiary, Expertise France, that helps support stakeholders. So we support local authorities as well as the private sector to help entrepreneurs. So that works for Congo with a group that has a partnership with the IRD. Thierry d'Almeida, what's your point of view? How is it going for you with Sèmè City? How do you face these challenges? Thank you very much. So first of all, a few words about Sèmè City. It is the international city of knowledge and innovation in Benin. This project shows the will of the Benin state to build economic growth on solid base, that is to say, knowledge and human capital development. Beyond economic growth, we want young African people, with all their potential, to express their creativity and free their potential. Today, 2 million young Africans enter the job market, and less than 2 million of them find a formal job, which means that we lose a lot of human capital, and this impacts the development of our ecosystems. As you know, Benin is a small country with a 73,000 square kilometers with 12 million inhabitants, but our strategy is quite strong because our powerful neighbor is Nigeria with 220 million inhabitants, and Nigeria is going towards us. So we need to create regional strategies. That's the reason why our project, Sèmè City, wants to set up a regional hub which will be made up of high schools and technical schools. This project will be accessible to the whole Africa. The first campus was set up in Cotonou, and we are building another one in Ouida. If you know Benin, Ouida is at the west of Cotonou. When you go towards Togo, this city has a rich history that's played a vital role in the so-called triangle trade, and today it is known through this campus that spreads on 336 hectares. To sum up, Sèmè City provides training courses, research, and entrepreneurship. These three elements can build bridges and they can help each other and grow together. Pascal, ASSELIN, what are the challenges currently faced by Morfo on the topic of co-innovation and co-development in Africa? At Morfo, it all started with a collaboration with the AFG. So we had this idea as an entrepreneur to implement a project on the field. We wanted to spread reforestation on many hectares, and as you know, there's climate change that is impacting our planet. So we wanted this land to be operational, but we also wanted a relevant project. So there were local ecosystem that had been suffering, and so we wanted to gain credibility, wanted to be credible with partners and investors, wanted them to imagine the tangible implementation of this project on the field. So that's how it all started. We started from science, We thought that there was a lot of knowledge that had been generated by the RRD, for example, by other partners we worked with, by people who had experience in the field of reforestation, of the renewal of degraded forests. So how can you do that? You know, it's not easy. So that was the first challenge we faced and we addressed. Later on, we found a solution, a first solution. We wanted to implement it. We created a first bowl in which we inserted fungi or seeds. So you can imagine that we put it into the earth and there might be something coming out of it. And we developed a system of drones that would actually spread the seeds around. So after the idea stage, we needed to spread everything, and nowadays we cover 100 hectares. And we are trying to adjust our solutions in order to supplement our gaps. So we wanted to expand our project, and let's think about the Great Green Wall. This project has been on for a long time, but imagine with this kind of partner, we can hope to finally position our project on the market. So that's quite a complicated project, but that's the reason why our project is so interesting. Valérie Verdier, what are the strategies to implement to seize the opportunities of co-innovation and co-development? Thank you for mentioning the IRD. We work in close partnership with Sèmè. You just mentioned an example that really shows the way in which the IRD builds its partnership. We want to build our partnerships on equity, on fair projects that have bilateral benefits. So what was your question? What are your strategies to seize opportunities offered by co-innovation and co-development? We start with a co-building process. We try to identify the issues faced by users. That's what we do in the way we work with the AFD. We start from the field with steering committees that were set up in the IRD. We have 35 representatives in the world, especially in the tropical Mediterranean region. So we start with tangible meetings with our partners and collaborators. We identify issues. There are also local development commissions that was set up within embassies recently, which provide spaces of exchange in which we launch discussions and identify what we want to build. Then co-innovation is made up of many disciplines and many different stakeholders around the table. We have a very wide vision of the issue at stake, and together we try to find paths towards innovation. Let me give you an example. With Filinoc branch line, that is a partnership we've been building in 20 years, and together we provide solutions to provide inoculums to make soils richer, so our seeds could be stronger. And these solutions can foster innovation and can provide financing to small companies that will give benefits to farmers on the field. I hope I answered your questions. That's the way we work. That is important.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to ask another question to Papa Amadou Salah. So tell us about co-innovation and co-development, because I know that this is a new area that France, Europe and Africa want to work on together. So tell us about the relationships that you have with Africans Are the stakeholders public? Are they private? And how do you see the opportunities? Is it up to you to put them forward? Is it up to you to support them? Okay, so we mentioned the idea of co-construction. Today we have a wide range of stakeholders that we work with. The local private sector works alongside us in specific sectors. Then we also have expert support thanks to Expertise France. So France is about 50% of the operations that we do, and the budgets are in the billions. A lot of these activities are done together. So with teams that focus on research on a local level, this might be in Casablanca, Johannesburg, or anywhere else. So we involve international partners that are specialists in research. For example, we have a partnership with the University of Clermont-Ferrand, and it also involved central banks and ministers of finances to try and support entrepreneurs with the public policies. We are constantly co-constructing, and what I mean by that is that most of the projects that we're working on are actually led by representatives of the African countries that we collaborate with. So they include local stakeholders in different sectors, so they help define the project and the program. During the initial stages, we might call upon expertise to come and do feasibility surveys and understand if this project is actually viable. Will it be cost effective? So we really emphasize the importance of using local expertise and local stakeholders so that we can ensure that we can get Senegalese populations, for example, can come along and contribute. So that is what co-construction, co-valorization, and co-development means for us. And local initiatives, we really want to always get them involved as much as possible. So you work in the field in Africa. Everything that we've been saying is what you hear on a regular basis. Can you please tell us how things are actually in the field? So I'm going to talk about what I know the best. So that's research. I've been paying close attention to what my co-panelists have been saying, and they've mentioned the Great Green Wall. It's very easy to just say that, okay, we're going to put together this project, the Great Green Wall, but in reality, we must have genuine support, genuine expertise to ensure that it actually comes good. And these days, thanks to technological studies and surveys and expertise, we are actually able to be more resistant to extreme environments. So this is a genuine example, and one of the areas of research that we have been working on. We work a lot on issues to do with energy and access to energy, which is essential for development. Not forgetting wastewater management, waste management, so rubbish management in cities. We have a very innovative tool, which is a platform, a research platform that is, and so it's called X-Tech Lab, and it has helped train over 100 researchers in many different countries in Africa with many different sessions. It is a collaborative experimental research platform. What is so interesting is that when the research topics are presented by a country, we have a large level of requests because people want to get involved, not just countries that are neighboring, so Zimbabwe, Kenya, or Ethiopia. But even for the first time last year, we had learners coming from Jamaica and India wanting to get involved. So it's so good to see that coming together. We really hope to be able to come up with the best practices that are applicable worldwide. And we have the ENS, the University of Sorbonne, as well as other central schools that we can count among our partners. One of the really important areas is the materials and the sustainability. So the IRD's support is so invaluable because we have, for the last 2 years, been organizing a summer school. So this happens in the summer months, whereby the IRD gives us expertise for us to think about innovative materials to face challenges and use concrete, for example, in better ways. So these are the kind of areas that we are working on in a collaborative style. And not forgetting, obviously, sustainability and frugal management of resources. Let me remind you that science and innovation is the topic that we're really talking about during this roundtable. Could you please tell us more about what you do and how do you include young people into the co-construction dynamic? How do you involve them? Please tell us about that in great detail. So let's start with Papa Amadou Sarr. But we can start with anyone, really. Okay, so we're going to start with Valérie Verdier. As we've mentioned, young people in Africa represent 25% of the population, and by 2050, 35% of the world's population will be African, young population that is. So this is why we think of doing things in different ways. So we train PhD students. We have implemented a number of tools, one of which is particularly important, which helps young people travel between France and their countries to visit laboratories. So we also have South-South mobility. We co-invest in this program as well in Africa. To give you some numbers, we have trained 900 PhD students in Africa over the past years. So it is a network of PhD students from different backgrounds. The IRD has been working in Africa for a long time, so it is a network that we must capitalize on better. And we hope that next year, during the next Emerging Valley, we will be able to announce the alumni of a network of PhD students. We do youth clubs in high schools where we try to talk to them about topics that they really care about, such as water, biodiversity, how to transform landscapes to make them more balanced. And that can be relevant to many different areas, such as health, where we are also very involved. We want to try and incentivize young people to better react to certain illnesses. And that's an initial investment. We also invest in training programs. We call them structuring training programs. And that is a level of support for certain areas which are prioritary for us and for our partners as well, such as climate. We produce a number of training courses in this area, and we're also developing a certain number of teaching materials for young people. I'm not going to tell you everything we do for youth, but indeed this is one of the priorities that we had set ourselves. I've been working at the IRD for the past 4 years, and indeed the youth are the future, so we must absolutely include innovation in our thought process. We must highlight the talent that there is in the youth population. Thank you very much. So Papa Amadou Sarr. tell us about youth in the development and research programs at the IRD. As you said, Malik Diawa, we try to support young talents so that they can have the financial resources they require. And so you were a former minister in Senegal. You headed up a company which helped men and women, so you really know a lot about this subject. You're the real expert on the topic. Let me tell you about what motivates me in this initiative. So supporting women and young people for entrepreneurship in the territory thanks to financial resources. We give them incubation and acceleration spaces in laboratories. We also provide them with our partners, and the AFD has been supporting us over the past 2 years with 20 million euros of funding. So we have many different institutions that are supporting us to think about how we can include youth in our ideas. So in certain areas in Africa, 70% of the populations are under 35 years old, but they need support and funding as well. So we have 20 million young Africans coming out of university that aren't able to find a job, but we want to provide them with entrepreneurial projects to help them create wealth and value and employment. And we did that after 4 years. We helped over 200 entrepreneurs gain access to employment and opportunities. That's the first thing. Secondly, to answer your question, within the AFD group, we have partnerships with governments, and we specifically focus on youth populations. We have BPI, Expertise France, and we really care about youth-focused entrepreneurial programs to help startups in the African continent. We have the SIBC, for example, the Social and Inclusive Business Camp, which took place last week in Marseille, and these projects are focused on scaling up activities. It's important for entrepreneurs to think about their product market fit, to sell their products, to get the relevant funding so that they can then create more jobs and wealth. These projects come out of the programs that we have implemented because we always listen to local authorities and governments about what they deem are the highest priorities in this area. So things such as how can we plan for the future. As I mentioned, the 70% of population is under 35 years old in certain areas of Africa, so it's a really important topic. Can you tell us about your approaches? We are absolutely convinced by one thing, and that's that the youth is a fantastic opportunity for Africa and the entire world, but it is also a ticking time bomb, because if we don't invest in human capital to give young people the skills that they need to express themselves, then you can build all the walls that you want in Europe. It will not prevent people from taking the perilous journey across the Mediterranean to try and get to Europe. So this is why we create training courses and we implement programs that enable us to help this talent and give them what they need. We don't want young people to leave our countries. We don't like the idea of the brain drain, so we want to keep them. We want to incentivize them to stay. 75% of the population in Benin is under 25 years old. So that's a major issue. These days, Africa has huge potential which has not yet been tapped into. The World Bank trains 400,000 engineers per year. We need to ensure that Africa catches up. So, what can we do to help the Beninese population? We need to be training them in the country. We need to be training at least 200 to 300 per year. That is engineers, among other experts. So we need to be really equipping them with the tools that they need to face the challenges of tomorrow. We really care about training young people. We know that idleness is the devil's plaything. So we must absolutely give them training courses that enable them to express themselves. That is really what we care about. It's what we're all about. And youth employability and youth fulfillment is a real hot topic for us. We must absolutely occupy them and help them reach their potential. So I'm just going to ask Sèmè one thing quickly. So, our Minister Mamadou TOURE is online with us. I'm just going to ask him a question before we continue on with the round table. So, okay, so just before that, we're going to ask Pascal ASSELIN, how do you manage your structure? You work in Africa. How do you work with Africans? Do you have African partnerships? How does all of that work? What kind of objectives have you set yourself? So when we go into a new territory, we've been in France, we've been in Gabon, we've been in Brazil. We do have an implantation strategy which is extremely important to ensure that our method and technology is validated by the local authorities. And that is the first step. The second is to have local networks, because when we're trying to restore a forest and work in biodiversity, we need to ensure that we understand between 10 to 15 species of plants per project. So we must collect seeds in the forests and train local seed collectors if need be. So this is something that we do when we arrive in the territory. We collaborate with local NGOs, and by providing them with projects and programs, we help them and they help us gain access to their local networks. We then also collaborate with companies that need forest restoration for them to do their business activities. This might be, for example, soil preparation, reforestation. Each step of every project has a large focus on collaboration. But of course, the locals know the local area much better than we do. This is why their help is so invaluable, and we absolutely want to ensure that our programs will stand the test of time. It's a long process, though. Of course, a forest doesn't grow back overnight, so we must absolutely be patient. It's not something that happens at the click of a finger, so we need to be there, we need to be doing the follow-up, we need to be listening to the forest, and there is a very close collaboration that can be done with nature, between nature and local collaborators. Do we have Minister TOURE with us online? If not, we'll hear from him later. So I'd like to ask you about your perspectives. How do you see the future and the perspectives of R&D in the logic of co-innovation between Europe and Africa? This time, I'm going to start with Thierry to make sure that we hear from him. Okay, so perspectives that we are building in Benin are, for example, setting up excellence centers. We want to slow down the brain drain in Africa. So we want to organize excellent training courses in our country, specifically focused on R&D, research and development, and we therefore create these training courses to ensure that young people don't have to leave the country, they don't need to go to Paris or New York, they can stay at home and be competitive, to ensure that they are at the same level of international standards. So that's our first step, and it's incredibly important. Do you have an ecosystem which enables these people to work in the countries in Africa rather than leaving and going overseas? Because Africa is one thing, but the real issue a lot of the time is the ecosystem. Okay, so we should never think of our countries as small nations, that they're not very big or consequential. We need to think more about the African employment market, which is actually very open. We have done training courses on digital technology, and young people are very interested in doing them. And as soon as they finish these courses, they can find employment in the entire world. So they can end up working for companies in Canada. So the sky is the limit. We work in this new paradigm. We are part of the global employment market. We have seen that the brain drain is no good. We want African youth to stay in African countries, and as we mentioned earlier on, I'm sure that Africa has the most natural resources in the world. I went back to Africa, and the potential that I see there is quite simply something that I just don't see elsewhere. There is enough space to train, to understand, and to understand how you can employ yourself. Because one of what is so specific about City is that we can do capacity building courses and come out the end of them as entrepreneurs. So training, research and entrepreneurship helps us construct a continuum which enables entrepreneurship to feast on the results of the fruits of its labor. So we have fantastic ideas in Africa. African researchers are not less good than elsewhere, but what is lacking is resources. A lot of these resources or potential actually ends up not being fully utilized. We have very promising concepts in Africa, and what we want to do is construct schemes that enable our researchers to get beyond what I call the valley of death, between the proof of design and the prototype. Very often researchers are unable to bridge this gap because the schemes don't exist. And so one of the priorities that we have at Sèmè is to put together solid, mature schemes where we get people who are at the top of the chain, so users or customers, to come back and give feedback to about what they need with regard to the research that has been done. It is an innovative approach that is starting to give results, and of course I'm sure that this will continue to give results in the future to enable the youth to continue utilizing the potential in Africa. Okay, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for your very enlightening speech. Can you tell us about the relationship that Sèmè has with owners of intellectual property? Tell us about the number of patents that you have in your ecosystem, please. Indeed, we have put together a co-ownership, an intellectual property co-ownership charter, which ensures that intellectual property is shared between the stakeholders. This is not something that we have created or invented. We actually got inspired by other people. So this scheme works. And intellectual property is key, it is pivotal, and we must ensure to be able to implement it in a fair way across the value chain. Pascal ASSELIN, how do you see the perspectives in your field? I think that, first of all, just to come back to what Thierry mentioned, is that it's really important to get researchers to work with companies, and this kind of collaboration can really give solid results. Amazing ideas, indeed, can sometimes fall into the valley of death and not see the light of day. Indeed, a lot of entrepreneurs are not researchers and vice versa. So that is why it is so important to implement these schemes on a high scale so that they reach the general public. It is a very complex path, and this is why we absolutely need to be there to underpin it. With regard to perspectives and evolution, today I see a huge amount of potential on the market where we are. Sometimes regulations can get in the way. Economic and political stakeholders might have the right desire, but they can actually end up getting caught up in the red tape. It's difficult, therefore, to actually get through the political red tape and ensure that projects are implemented. We need to make sure that things are made possible, and this needs to be done quickly because, indeed, the climate change issues that we're all facing are increasing day by day. So time is pressing, and we need to continue researching and focusing on biodiversity as well as restoring soils. As I mentioned, they're incredibly damaged at the moment, so we need to be very attentive to what's happening in biomass and carbon stock. So for me, there's an unlimited amount of potential, and it's very, very promising and exciting. Thank you so much. We're gonna now hand back over to Papa Amadou SARR. How do you see the future? As I mentioned earlier, let's talk about illegal immigration. People leave Africa and end up in America because there are no job opportunities, whereas elsewhere they might have the right economic opportunities to fulfill their potential. Africa does have the potential, even despite the challenges that it faces. The youth population is increasing. It is better trained, it is better educated, it has more skills to be able to then create locally and produce locally to give way to higher added value and give a better quality of life to local populations. So we made this bet to support governments in defining their public policies in terms of sustainable development. So by identifying issues, projects, and helping them through research and innovation schemes in many different countries in Africa. So the IRD does collaborate between Africa and Europe. We want our projects to be sustainable. And today, the question is all about funding and food and research centers. So universities provide the ideas, and they might put forward projects to enable young people and entrepreneurs to scale up their activities. And when they use new technologies, we'll be able to come up with sustainable solutions to fix issues in, for example, health. fundamental research needs to be supported through data centers across the continent, and companies are the perfect organizations to embody this change. 4G is currently being rolled out across the African continent to give researchers on site more opportunities and try and reverse the brain drain phenomena that we are currently undergoing. It will be great to have harmonious co-development between Africa and Europe, because we need each other. Africa needs Europe, and Europe needs Africa. All of the work that the IRD is doing in rainforests, in the Sahel. For example, I remember when I was 10 years old. So 10 years ago, we went to go and work alongside the engineers to help them with their seed and cotton producing activities. Who was helping agronomical engineers with their work? Americans are all over the place in the forests in Benin, in Senegal, to improve the quality of seeds and yields and be able to feed the entire population, as well as do research in the healthcare sector. So this is co-construction is inevitable, and as Thierry mentioned, they're going to come here.
Merci beaucoup, Papa Amadou.
Thank you very much. Valérie Verdier, as a conclusion. What do you think about it? What's left to do? I'll give an optimistic answer, just like my colleagues, even though we're faced with many challenges. Like, for example, as Thierry mentioned, to make young people stay in Africa, these people with huge promising projects. So we need to invest in training, in local training. So have been doing it, we need to keep on doing it. We must also invest in research. We need performing good laboratories, which are still missing in some countries, unfortunately. I like also to see more research institutes to be active, and not only in South Africa. There is a very well-developed tissue of researchers in South Africa, with the researchers looking for investment for innovation. With the IRD, we have set up the RISE project with Europe. We found 25 million euros affected in 5 years. So there will be 500,000 euros being given to various young people in order for them to move forward with the project. This is the kind of support we should provide for research in Africa. It is necessary. I think we're twins, because the works you do at Sèmè reflects what the IRD has been doing in Africa for a few years. And this is the kind of project I want to support, I want to put forward. I started working in Africa a long time ago, and I am still delighted to travel back and forth between Africa and Europe. But we're not the only one. We're not working alone. We work with many partners, such as Sèmè or private stakeholders. Let's not forget the many universities we work with, such as the local university, Aix-Marseille. Such universities support a project that support mobility between Africa and Europe. So I want to call on governments to help us support mobility. Mobility is vital at the moment, even though the situation is quite tense in some regions of Africa. I want young people to get visas and to be able to travel freely back and forth between France and Africa. Just to comment on what Valérie said, Professor Koita from Mali is here with us. He was here yesterday. I have other colleagues from Burkina Faso who are here with us, but when I see these young researchers and professors who leave Africa to come and settle down in France, I just want to tell them congratulations. The AUF is one of our partners and supports Francophone universities with whom we established strong partnerships. So I would like to thank these partners that have made it possible for us to work together. I saw Isabelle, who got here too. We worked together to support African entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And now we will award the innovation trophies, but as usual, first of all, let's take a family picture.
Mettez-vous devant.